There's no such thing as a brown thumb. There's only an inexperienced gardener. And honestly, when you really take a step back and look at it, most gardens fail for the same reasons. So today, to teach you how to grow your own food and herbs at home, we're going to look at the reasons why most gardens fail so that you can prevent these problems and start your garden on the right foot. The first reason that many gardens fail is that the soil is lacking vital nutrients. You see, a healthy garden begins with healthy soil. So before you ever start a garden, you want to take time to examine the soil and see what it looks like. Is it sandy or clay? Is it loose dirt or is it hard packed? Grab a shovel and dig around a bit to see what the soil looks like under the surface. Your soil should be soft, crumbly, and full of earthworms. If your soil is too acidic or too alkaline, it can impact your plants too. If you have too much nitrogen, you'll have lots of leaves and very few fruits. So how do you fix this? Or better yet, how do you prevent soil problems from the beginning? The first step is to test your soil. You can do this with a simple kit that's available at most nurseries. And once you test your soil, you'll know exactly what your soil needs. If it's too low in a particular nutrient or if the pH is slightly off. And then you can make adjustments and you can improve your soil by adding organic matter. So you want to add in things like compost, mulch, worm castings, bone meal. These are powerful additions to any garden, and just by adding compost you can drastically improve the state of your soil in just a few years. Here you see my husband Josh planting potatoes in one of our garden areas, and this garden is right in the ground, and our native soil here is a hard red clay. But by adding compost on top of that soil several different times, we've done it twice a year for the past 2 years, our soil has drastically improved, and now when we dig down in there, it's a whole lot better. And here you can see we were able to grow some beautiful potatoes in this plot of land this year. The second reason that many gardens fail is because of sunlight. Either they have too much or too little. So take a look at where you plan to put your garden and think about how many hours of sunlight does your space receive. Are some areas more shaded than others? Full sun is considered 6 to 8 hours a day of direct sunlight. Partial sun is 3 to 6 hours a day of direct sunlight. Full shade areas would have less than 3 hours of sunlight per day. Different crops have varied sunlight requirements, so you can choose what to plant based on the amount of sun your garden receives. Vegetable gardens really need full sun to get the best harvest. So take time to watch the pattern of how the sun moves across your property for a few days, or better yet, for a full year, so you can watch how it changes with the seasons. As you do this, you'll see which area of your property gets the best sunlight, and that will help you select the best place to put your garden. Now, if you're struggling with too much sun, or maybe you need some extra shade, there are a couple of things you can do. The easiest solution is to invest in some simple garden hoops and shade cloth. And this can really help with blocking out the too strong sun when you really need some relief in the hottest summer months. So shade cloth you can find on Amazon or in any garden store, and it can really help if the sun is an issue in your garden. The third reason that many gardens fail is because the gardener planted at the wrong time of year. Some vegetables can tolerate freezing temperatures, but most cannot. It's important to know the average first and last frost dates for your location so you can decide the best time of year to plant each crop. Oftentimes, a garden only fails because it was planted too early. Learn which crops are best suited for spring and fall versus which plants can tolerate summer heat. You can go to almanac.com to find your free personalized planting dates. This is one of the best free resources online for gardeners. Scroll down to gardening and then look for the box that says get your planting dates. From there, you will enter your zip code and it will generate a list that tells you exactly when to plant each kind of vegetable, whether to sow seeds directly into your garden or start them inside a few weeks ahead of time. So use that free tool and it will really break it down to help prevent you from planting too early or too late to get the best harvest. Another reason that many gardens fail is because of over or under watering. Too much or too little water can cause your garden to suffer. Large gardens often benefit from drip tape or irrigation systems, but these aren't really necessary. Here in my garden, I still water everything by hand with my garden hose. It takes an hour sometimes in the evening, but I don't have to water every single day, only in the hottest, driest parts of the summer. But the amount of water you need will depend on your climate. So how do you fix this? How do you know that you're watering the right amount? When watering, avoid wetting the leaves, first of all, as this can lead to mildew and fungal issues. Focus on deep watering at the ground level. A slow, steady water is much better than a fast blast. Dig down a few inches into the soil and feel for moisture to determine how much water your plants need. Your soil should be loose and moist, but not soggy. If you can squeeze a handful of soil together in your hand and it stays in a clump, your soil is wet enough and doesn't need to be watered. If it crumbles, you need more water, so go ahead and water your plants. Another reason gardens fail is simply because of the weeds. Weeds are a headache for every gardener, but it is much worse if you let it go on for too long. Weeds can cause intense damage to your garden, stealing valuable nutrients from the soil and choking out the plants that you're trying to get to thrive. So how do you fix it? Weed barrier is always a smart idea. Line your beds and walkways with a thick double layer of cardboard before you add soil. The cardboard will suppress the weeds so they aren't as aggressive and can be more easily managed. The best way to prevent weeds from destroying your garden is going to require a little bit of manpower and a lot of patience. Try to spend at least 15 minutes every single day pulling weeds to keep things from getting out of control. Most importantly, add a good layer of mulch to your garden. Weeds thrive on bare soil, so keep your soil covered so the weeds never have a chance to take over. We mulch our garden with wood chips, which you can actually get for free. Go to chipdrop.com and you can request a free drop of wood chips from a local arborist. If you don't receive a delivery right away, you can also just make some phone calls and contact tree services in your area. I have found that our local tree services are thrilled to have a place to dump extra wood chips when they're in the area, and we often will end up with a dozen loads of free chips per summer. And we use these to line the walkways to prevent the weeds from taking over in the garden. The next big problem that can take out your garden in a heartbeat is the insect damage. Bugs. A single hornworm can completely demolish a tomato plant in one day. Cabbage worms will show no mercy in the early spring, and watch out for the Japanese beetles during the summer. When you stop using commercial pesticides in your garden, you'll be amazed at how it changes. The entire ecosystem comes to life, and you'll start to notice more butterflies and bees. Of course, you're also going to start seeing hornworms and slugs and squash bugs, so it's important to know what you can use to safely treat pests without introducing harmful chemicals to your family through your garden. So how do you deal with the pest? Companion planting is my number one tool. By planting strategic flowers and herbs around my vegetables, I'm able to drastically reduce the number of pests in our garden. So look into companion planting to learn more about the best pairings. You also want to remove any pests you see by hand. I know if you're a little squeamish, this might not sound like a fun job, but it's really important. So when you see pests or eggs often hiding on the underside of your leaves, go ahead and remove those. Sometimes all it will take to get rid of bugs is some soapy water. So fill a spray bottle with water and add a few drops of Castile soap and make it extra powerful with a few drops of peppermint essential oil. You can spray this mixture as often as needed on your plants to help prevent bug damage. Another organic option that is available is neem oil. And neem oil is a good preventative, particularly used in the spring and summer. But it can affect bees, so use neem oil sparingly and only in the evening when bee activity is at its lowest. The next big challenge that gardeners tend to face is simple disease, fungal issues. These kinds of things can really cause frustration for even the most experienced gardeners. Fungal issues and blight can quickly spread from plant to plant and wipe out your crop. Once disease and fungal problems set in, they can be really difficult to treat. So the best cure is really prevention. So how can you fix it, or better yet, avoid it? When you are planting your garden, try to choose blight-resistant varieties. Talk with other farms and gardeners in your area to find out what varieties have been best resistant to blight in past years. When you water your plants, always water at the base of the plant and avoid wetting the leaves. This can drastically cut down on fungal issues. If you do start to notice problems, you can mist your leaves with a solution of water and diluted neem oil weekly to stop powdery mildew. Prune out any evidence of disease as soon as you see it and remove it from the garden. Don't leave those trimmings laying around, as they will spread disease even after you've removed them from the plant if you don't take them completely out of the garden. So disease and fungal issues can be intimidating, but if you stay on top of it and you're carefully checking your plants every day, you can usually kind of defeat it, and you can still get a good crop even if you do get visited by a blight. Another mistake that many new gardeners make is overcrowding their plants. It can be really tempting to cram a lot of plants or seeds into a tiny space, but overcrowding can lead to some problems. As plants compete for a limited supply of nutrients in your soil, they may weaken, and without adequate room, the roots can't spread and develop correctly. This will cause weak plants that are easily damaged or diseased. So here's how to fix it. Always follow the spacing suggestions on your seed packs, or try to get close. Thin out your seedlings to ensure each plant has adequate space, and just keep an eye on things. If you notice that it's getting a bit crowded, you may need to carefully transplant things and move it around to make enough room for everything to fully grow and your harvest to come in and develop. Another reason that many gardens fail, and this one has been known to make even the most Christian gardeners say a few cuss words, and that is the wildlife. Are the deer feasting on your garden at night while you sleep? Maybe the wild rabbits or groundhogs are stealing your ripe tomatoes off the vines and nibbling your peas. Wildlife is an unavoidable challenge in the garden, but there are some things you can do to work with nature instead of against it, and to protect your hard-earned crop from hungry critters. So here's what to do. First of all, look into fencing your garden. Having some sort of barrier can work well to keep out deer, especially. You can also use your garden trellises as a form of fencing. So by creating a living fence, you can really keep the wildlife away. Another thing to try is a wire cloche to cover your crops. You could also use companion planting to deter animals, just like you use it to deter bugs. So planting marigolds and mint in particular around the border of your garden can help deter pests. Try planting lavender if you have lots of problems with deer. Lavender and sage are both really helpful for keeping deer out of the garden. You can also try a motion-activated light or sprinkler. This is super effective for deer, but it can also work for groundhogs, rabbits, squirrels. The idea is that when the light or the sprinkler switches on, it will startle the animal and they will leave your garden before they do any damage. Another simple trick that you can use is to sprinkle red pepper flakes or cayenne pepper around your plants. One little nibble, and most small animals will run for it and never come back to your garden again. The final reason that most gardens fail is probably the saddest of all, and that is simply because the gardener gave up too soon. Listen, your garden is yours, and that means you get the final say on all decisions, from watering to fertilizer to pest control and plant placement. You can use advice from other gardeners to guide you, but don't get so hung up on doing everything right that you lose the joy of gardening. Part of the fun is experimenting to see what works and what fails. Every garden is unique, and what works for that one homesteader on YouTube who grows the incredible carrots might not work in your backyard. So just remember that failures are not actually failures, they are lessons. You're going to learn something every time you grow something new. No matter what happens, don't panic. A garden gives you the merciful gift of a blank slate and a fresh start every spring. Learn the lesson and look for ways to do things differently next year. If you learned something, it was a fruitful gardening season. If you're interested in learning more about how to grow your own food and herbs at home, I would love to invite you to come be part of our Grace Walk Farm Garden School. This garden school was an idea that came to us about a year ago, and my husband Josh and I sat down and we mapped out everything we wished we had known when we started our gardening journey. You can learn more at gracewalkfarm.org.